This podcast is powered by Feinberg Consulting and Intervention, Case Management, Coaching, and Companion Service. Hi, everyone. This is Pam Feinberg-Rivkin of Feinberg Consulting and here with the Resilient Butterfly podcast. Today is a really wonderful guest, Matthew Tomain, who I received his contact and information from Natalie Ledwell. Matthew is currently in Los Angeles, but originally from Ireland. So we got some stories to tell between Ireland and Los Angeles for sure. I haven't been to Ireland, but love Los Angeles. Matthew is a serial entrepreneur, award-winning film producer, public speaker, and the creator of The Evolution of Success, which we will dive into to find out what that is all about. Matthew has a story to tell in regard to when he left school, how he started as an entrepreneur, and how life changed for him and some transformation that occurred in his life and how that all occurred. I am honored and thank you very much for telling your story, Matthew. This is the first time we've met like face to face.
Thanks, Pam, for asking me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So where would you like to start? Your story or how you came into the evolution of success or your what there's so much about you that I don't even know where to begin.
Well, look, I mean, I created The Evolution of Success started as a documentary of a journey that I was kind of on myself. Whenever I first read The Secret in 2010, like everybody else, coming through. Mm-hmm. And as my life was at that point, like really starting to crumble in different ways, the old version of my life, I worked as a refrigeration engineer, an air conditioning engineer.
Okay.
And I got into property and had different businesses and things going on back in the day. And then I fell victim to the 2008 to 2012 recession, that major crash.
Were you in Ireland or were you in Ireland? Okay.
Ireland, Northern Ireland. Like, I mean, I worked 9 to 5. I had houses that were rented out. My life, I always dreamed of something better. Like when I got into my van, I was driving to work at 7 a.m. I was just thinking, there has to be something better than this, because I always wanted to work in film and I always wanted to work in, all these different things. But even though at that time it would have presented that it wasn't possible, just because of how my life was so entangled into Northern Ireland with houses and properties and jobs and family. And I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And then I read The Secret and started just putting everything into law of attraction and taking action and different things. And what ended up happening was I ended up going bust. I ended up going completely lost everything. I bought my first house at 19. And
wow.
And I bought the next house like 21 or something and around that age. And I signed everything over to the banks just before my 30th birthday, whenever I believed that I was meant to have everything sorted.
I was just going to ask, do you think it was all by design, that it just collapsed for you to be able to build something different?
I hope the whole world didn't collapse because of me, but I do think
for yourself. Not everybody collapsed,
No, but not everybody collapsed, you're right. And that's what I've learned since, that there is ways to be recession proof. There is ways to do that. And I didn't know that at the time. And I do think it did. My world collapsed because my best friend at the time, Remo, he bought his house the same time as me, about a year later. He's got now maybe 6 or 7 houses, maybe more, and he's got the electrician business and he's got the vans and all the staff like that. I could have done that version of my life with refrigeration, kept the houses and worked. But I did take the opportunity to sort of like hit the reset button, because I just believed there was something different. And I ended up being in Dublin and I knew the unemployment line actually for 2 years, collecting €188 per week off the government, and didn't tell anybody because I was so ashamed and, had all the stigma around it. I'd had money from I was working from 15. I've never not had money. And at that point, and when you do buy your first house at 19 and when you do get a new car and you do go traveling, people say, oh, you're doing so well. And it just adds another little bit of pressure on you.
Sure.
Sure. So when it
you have to keep up with the presence of what they think you are, right?
Kind of, yeah. I fell into that, and I found it very difficult then to be like, hey, listen, I failed. I've let it go. So I decided not to tell anyone, for the longest time. And until like 2015. And then I opened Bankhouse Productions. Then through that time, whenever I was reading The Secret and asking myself those questions, what do you want to do with your life? And I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a landlord, didn't want to, do any of that stuff. So I'd started like getting into acting. Got into the acting world and went to an acting class and met with directors, and I absolutely loved it. Most of the people as well were also on unemployment, so I was able to like fit right in. We were all like together and all broke.
It's like in Los Angeles, they're waiters and waitresses until they're actors and actresses, right?
That's it, And I loved being on set, and but the acting part I found quite hard. I don't think I was that good at it, but I loved the buzz behind the scene. I loved the production side of things. And because I'd had businesses and houses, and I'd always dealt with people like not paying me rent or being late with stuff. So from a very young age, I was very business orientated. So whenever my creative side met with the film side, producing was the natural next step, because I was able to deal with money, able to deal with budgets, organization, and even all my refrigeration background and everything. It's like none of it was for nothing. It all like
there were
added
lessons
to
for you to learn to be in a place. Yeah.
Skills and lessons. And really because of The Secret, I don't know if you got this, like I think everybody that is creative and read The Secret was thinking, I could have wrote this, I could have wrote this book, because it was all the gut instinct that we all have as children, imagination and playfulness. And so I then went on this quest to make a documentary, around that time. And I was thinking, that's exactly what I'm going to do,
So is that the evolution of success? That's what you're talking about, the documentary?
I ended up going on this quest to make the evolution of success. I made a few documentaries and movies at the same time, but I started to interview people that had been through, hardship, went bankrupt, ups and downs, and what brought them back. And I ended up interviewing Bob Doyle from The Secret, Law of Attraction, Jack Canfield, and Joe Vitale. So these are people that mentored me through reading a book. Within a small amount of time, really, in the grand scheme of things, I was sitting in front of them in LA, in Las Vegas, in Calabasas. And my friend Steve G. Jones always said, Matthew, you should make a documentary on this, because you literally are a living example of it. The law of attraction works. You've put your mind to it, and now you're sitting with these people, you're interviewing them. And then a whole host of other ones, Natalie Ledwell being one of them, who connected us. But it was funny because around that time, at my lowest point, when I was broke, I always seemed to find money for alcohol. Being Irish, I drank a lot, and I'm now 8.5 years sober. But when I was filming, thank you very much. When I was filming with Bob Doyle, I was sitting with Bob, and I had been at the American Film Market the night before. I was only over in America for like maybe a month. And at the very end of the interview, he just happened to say, "Oh, I'm a year sober today."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Oh, congratulations, Bob." And I said, I've done a month, and I nearly had a drink last night. Like I had it in my hand, and I actually threw it in the bin. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm struggling. And he said, "Just do one more month." He said, "You can do one more month. You just do one." And I was thinking, I got goosebumps, and I always get goosebumps.
Yeah, I have goosebumps. You're talking about it. Wow.
No, because he was mentoring me through The Secret without even knowing. And then that one statement genuinely set me on to doing another month. And then from there, I just done another month. And that's actually what I say to people now. Do a month. See how you go, So
that's awesome.
And then I met him at the Evolution of Success premiere, and he said, are you still sober? And I was like, yeah. And so was he at that time. I don't know what his relationship is now at the minute with alcohol, but I said, I want to thank you for that, because that made a massive difference to me. At that time, these people were mentoring me through books and TVs and movies, and now I'm like
I've had a lot of that mentoring too. And I started with Natalie with really looking at. I'm trying to think. There was a connection, and through them, and now I'm coaching with her, and I'm creating my own movies, and it's a really, really beautiful thing. And one of those was to have this podcast. So I think that. I know that there is a lot to that. And when I saw The Secret many years ago, it didn't go deep enough, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that people didn't realize. It just doesn't happen by you wanting it. There is a lot to really developing and creating that
Yeah, and that's the thing with the evolution of success. It's like 12 steps. It's actually 13 steps, but we just put it as 12. And it's not in any association with AA or anything like that. I think AA is amazing. I didn't go through AA myself. I had different sponsors that had been, people very close to me, that guided me through that. But with the evolution of success, it's like our own version, and it's very practical, and there's a workbook and everything with it. And it's a really, really practical piece of, like, anybody who goes through the process. And we've always had it on, on the, we sell the movie and then we sell the workbook. And I'm in the process, because all the other stuff that I've worked on before, the movies and the documentaries, they've all got distribution through Amazon Prime, Tubi, TV, all that stuff. And, only last week I decided that I'm putting the evolution of success through the traditional distribution channels. And I actually started last Friday. So it's going to be everywhere, Amazon Prime and all those things. Because we had done like marketing around it with affiliate marketing and with partnerships and all those things. And we pulled back a bit from it with that movie. And I thought, it's so good. It like, I want everybody to see it all the time. So I just started that literally last week.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me, what brought you, at what age did you start drinking alcohol? I mean, you're...
I'm 13 years old. So I literally started drinking when I was 13 in Ireland. I want to say that's normal.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I've never been to Ireland, but that's what I'm hearing. And tell us about, you were just telling me before we got on that you have an office that is right down the street from the famous bar in Ireland.
Yeah. So Temple Bar is like an area. It's kind of like Venice Beach, or if you go to Manhattan Square, Temple Bar is like an area, and it's the biggest tourist attraction in Ireland. But it's so much fun. Bars, bands, there's hen nights, stags, weekends come. And my office is in the Temple Inn Recording Studio is on the basement. The Rock and Roll Museum is all the way through it. And then Bankhouse Media, my digital media agency, is on the top floor. So, we walk through a museum every day in Dublin to get into the office. But being there and being sober is difficult. Because there's so much alcohol around you. There's so much fun. And then I lived in Portobello at the time, and I lived back in LA, and walking up Camden Street is a long walk in Dublin city centre when you're trying to get sober.
Sure.
There's
so
no
what
question
made
about
you
it.
decide to get sober? What happened?
I probably wanted to quit drinking way before I did. Whenever I was 27, I realized, okay, I think this might have a grip on me. And at that point, I realized that I was drinking too much. I never got in a fight. I was the life and soul of the party. I could have drank every day and got up and went out and never got a hangover. I was probably always hungover. Emotionally, didn't have any control of my emotions, which I now understand. I didn't understand that at the time. But from 27, I really just looked in the mirror and was like, okay, you're an alcoholic, and let's not tell anybody. Let's keep it to ourselves for now. So I'm like, okay, let's just keep it to ourselves. I kept it to myself for quite a while, and drank nonstop. I thought at that point, there's no way I can stop here. By the time I hit 30, I had a really, really big 30th birthday party. And, people bought me so much alcohol. There was champagne in my house for weeks after, and I was drinking the champagne at 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I was having a ball, and I didn't finally stop drinking until I was just turned 34. So I had been, at that point, it was medical. My stomach was bloated out as big and as hard as you could possibly see. I got diagnosed with diverticulitis, hiatus hernia. Three of my liver bloods were off, high cholesterol, and the doctor said to me, Matthew, look, diverticulitis is nothing to worry about, and it's common if you're 60, not if you're 33 about to turn 34. And I told the doctor at that time, I said, listen, I'm not going to drink again. I know she'd said to me, would you try, like, don't drink that, but try this, or don't drink this and try that. She was trying to get me, like, talk sense into me. And I said, listen, I'm never going to drink again. And she said, whenever I went back about a month later, I was actually really sick. I was really thin at that point, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. I was getting cameras everywhere and scans, and they were very worried. And she said, Matthew, if I had have known you were really not going to stop, I would have put you on a program to like wean you off, alcohol, because I was drinking a lot, and nobody knew again. I didn't.
Did you just stop cold turkey?
Yeah.
With all that alcohol you were drinking, you're very lucky you didn't get really very sick.
My skin was grey. I was that skinny. And she said to me, Matthew, they were sending me for like liver scans, for bloods. As soon as she realized I had stopped, she kind of went into panic. I got a kidney infection. I got a bad kidney infection. And she said to me at the time, Matthew, this is really serious. I did not know how serious kidney infections were. I didn't. Now
well, you were 34. I mean, what guy at 34 thinks of these things, right?
Now my whole family think that I'm like an online doctor, because I do so much research into everything and like what I eat and what I do. I feel fresher and feel like I even look younger than I did back then. And that was, 8 years ago. In my 40s, I feel better than I did in my 20s.
Did you get sober in LA or in Ireland?
In Ireland, even harder.
Oh, wow.
At least LA had supported and, this meetings. And I probably would have done AA if I had been out here. But my life didn't totally change. I was coming back and forth to LA and I was shooting some documentaries. But, I'd made a decision that I wanted to just get rid of my house, get rid of my car, get rid of everything, and go out, just travel. And for the past 5 years, I've been totally living in, up until last year, I was totally living in serviced accommodation, Airbnbs, hotels, houses, all sorts. And I traveled all over the world, Japan, spent summer in Greece, spent the summer in Italy, back in Ireland for a period, out in LA, over to Chicago, and just really have had a good time. Up until November last year, I was like, okay, I want to set roots down again. And I'm predominantly in LA now, office, back shooting a documentary, and just back to sort of like the conventional type of work. But around that time, I couldn't have done all of that if I was drinking alcohol, for one main reason: I couldn't have afforded it.
Yeah.
You can't, like, the amount of money that I was spending on alcohol, and compared to, and I mean, I had like 5-star trips all around the world. Like, we spent a lot of money, me and my business partner, traveling and working and shooting documentaries and really, really having a ball. And none of that would have been possible if I didn't get sober. And it's not even up for negotiation on that one. That is
right. So your life is really transformed. You talk about transformational work.
Unrecognizable. Unrecognizable, like to where it was. And that's the thing. It's, alcohol, like, as I said, had a control of my emotions. And I think it just dulls people's creativity and takes them away from where they're meant to be.
It's interesting. So because so many people who are either drug addicts or having a substance use disorder, whether it's drugs or alcohol, think that they need that in order to be creative. So you're saying the opposite, and and you're a living proof of the opposite, because you didn't do any of the creative work. You obviously bought homes and all of that stuff, but the creative work began after you got sober.
Absolutely. Like, there was a crossover period, but the crossover period was me sort of getting my creative going again. And again, yes, I was doing it. And yes, people feel that they need the alcohol to keep them going. But I then turned off the alcohol, and my creativity spiraled out of control to the point where I have a whiteboard in front of me right now, and I have to really be careful of like how many projects I take on, because I finish them all. But I don't want to burn myself out and overwhelm myself. But whenever I look back at even me and my business partner, what we done over like a short space of years between movies and different things, I tell you what, we done something in Ireland. In Ireland, we had ended up, there was a movie that we had done called Dive, and from the day of turning on the cameras, I think it was the 6th or 7th of March, to releasing in cinemas nationwide. I did a 90-minute feature film with massive cast, crew, locations. We even shot over in Holland. We made that movie from turning on cameras to releasing in cinemas nationwide in 66 days.
Wow.
Right now, that's shooting the full movie, editing it, and getting it. I sold it into cinemas on like a one-minute trailer. Wow. I sold it into a cinema in a 1-minute trailer, and then we released it. And it ran cinemas for 2 weeks and won Best Feature at the Indie Film Festival. If we had have applied for the Guinness Book of Records that year, we would have got in.
Wow,
because it never had been done before.
So how many documentaries have you actually done?
Probably about 5 documentaries. And then I've done, I think, 5 or 6 feature films. But now I run a digital media agency, so we make branded documentaries and branded content for companies, and we do lead generation and websites and all that kind of stuff, because I have marketing business as well. You know, there's 10 people work there, and it's what has brought me around the world. And I have Bankhouse Productions for film and documentary, and Bankhouse Media for digital marketing. And the Bankhouse production things, we really only want to work on projects that we love or make a difference. We done a movie that got released that was called Street Leagues, and it was about the Homeless World Cup. So there's an organization called the Homeless World Cup, and all the teams that go to it's soccer, and they travel to a country, and everybody has either just coming out of a program, 2 years sober, just coming out of prison, or just on the streets, coming off the streets, sober, working towards something, and they all go. And the Colin Farrell is the ambassador of Ireland, and the patriot of Ireland, and the ambassador of the Homeless World Cup. He was in the documentary as well. So we still do documentary. The new one that I'm doing is called Beyond the Game, and it's like life after basketball. So it's with basketball people who are in the NBA. So we do still documentary and film, but I don't have the same aspirations of winning an Oscar. I watched the Oscars last night. I don't think like, I want to give this everything, and like I more focus on what sort of makes me happy.
Sure.
And I don't want to like push it outside. I don't want to do something that makes me feel unhappy on the quest of winning an Oscar.
Sure. Well, you may do something that makes you happy and still have the Oscar.
Probably a better chance of it. But there's a lot of people have their goal and they're trying to really make it all fit.
Sure. Sure.
I'm kind of over that at this stage of my life. I just sort of understand that there's a higher power guiding us.
Right. So, what strategies have you used to stay sober? I'm very goal driven, and I always, if you want to stay sober, the one thing I'll say is like, figure out what it is in your life that you do want. You don't want to be hungover anymore. You don't want to be focused on being drunk. You don't want to be broke. You don't want to be all these things, but let's not focus on that, because what you focus like brings more of into your life. So you got to make sure that's why whenever we done the evolution of success and the workbook, step 0, I had to really redefine what success meant to me. What is success? Jack Canfield said, like, he's had fame, power, money, all these things. And he's like, that wasn't my definition of success. What your definition of success is going to be completely different than mine. Sure.
So understand what success means to you and what it is. Could be, for me at one point, it was like traveling the world and being carefree, So it's clearly redefine what success means, and then so that you can work through that so that it's attainable, and make sure you're not living someone else's dream. Just because you see a fancy car on Instagram doesn't mean that has to be your dream or you have to have that fancy car. Who cares?
Sure.
Figure out what it is yourself, and then set a strategy of working towards your own goals. We have 2 options in the world every day. Of a decision to make on everything that presents in front of us. Does this bring me closer to what I want or further away? If it brings you further away, don't do it. Even if it's an amazing opportunity. Even if it's an amazing opportunity and you think, oh my God, I could work with this person. If it's not bringing you closer to what it is that you want.
Absolutely.
And for years, I was going further and further away from what I wanted because I hadn't clearly identified what it is that I did want.
Sure. So I did something very small, but yet it's probably going to be very large in my life right now. Facebook was really occupying too much brain space. And today I've been contemplating it for a long time. And today I'm like, I got off the call with Natalie. I'm like, and we didn't even discuss getting off Facebook. It was about just getting past all of the stuff. And I'm like, I am just going to get off it because this is, this has become a problem for me. It is not, as you say, it's not getting me closer to what I want. It's getting me further away. And I just was experiencing some physical and emotional stuff around everything that I was reading and what is real and what is not real and trying to decipher that. And it just really was jacking my brain. So that's what I did. And I know that every day we have to choose something that is going to be closer to where we want to be.
Oh, yeah. And, now I live by, I live by it now, everything.
Yeah.
Food that I eat. And it's so easy once you understand that. You only have one decision to make. Does it bring me closer or further away? And once you realize that that's bringing you further away from where you want to be, you don't do it. I don't know, psychologically, it just lands.
And it's freeing too, once you make that decision, right?
Yeah, and you don't feel guilty, or you don't have second thoughts, or you don't think, God, should I have took that business idea? Oh, those guys have made a lot of money from that, or, oh, that movie got released, I should have been a part of that. Not really, because you're making the decision. Because what I have learned over the years as well is, because I have been broke, like zero money in the bank and on collecting an unemployment check, to being very wealthy and being able to live and travel wherever I want to go to and really have the life of my dreams. Money comes. You know, don't worry whenever it isn't. Don't be doing things just because of money. Money comes. You know, as I start to let, you know, my creativity guide me, and my, you know, does this bring me closer to what I want or further away? It just presents itself.
Sure.
You know, things just present themselves. If you keep moving forward, the right people show up, the right opportunities show up. And you have to believe that. If I was saying what would be the biggest advice in getting sober, decide where you want to go to and keep moving towards it with the understanding and belief that the right people are going to show up at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And they
well,
are.
You certainly have had the right people show up. Jack Canfield, Joe Vitelli, and Bob Doyle.
I know. Sonia Ricotti, like all these people. And you know,
where did you meet them all in the same place, or how did you reach out and were able to connect with
I'll
them?
give you like the fast version of the longer story. But I was out in LA in 2013. A really good friend of mine had said to me, Matthew, come for dinner tonight. There's a producer there, and there is a investor of a movie there. I got sat at the end of the table with the investor guy, and me and him really hit it off. He was very funny. He's called Steve G. Jones. He's a clinical hypnotherapist, and he lived out in Las Vegas. And whatever happened, I've told him this story years later, but at the end of the table, he said, have you ever been to Vegas, Matthew? And I said, no, but I'm actually going on Monday. And he said, oh my God, great. He said, why don't you come and stay with me? Now, this is 2013, whenever I was collecting my unemployment check and had no money. Right, I had like very little money, you know, and I was out here for 3 months. And I got home to the house. I was staying in a guest house out the back of a big house, and I said to Cynthia, you know, I've told this guy I'm going to Vegas on Monday. I'm not going, you know, I need to go, because I just knew in my gut this is the right move to make. I need to spend more time with this guy. For some reason, he seems to see what's going on with me. So I couldn't even afford a flight because there were 2 dear last minute. So I just hired a car for 3 days and just drove to Vegas on the Monday morning. Stayed with him, and through that time I told him, hey, listen, I'm in the process of going bankrupt. You know, they've had these houses and I've had no job and I don't know what to do. And he said, go back to Ireland and face it. Go back and face that.
Wow. Tell
them everything, do everything. So I done that. Years later, he was the one who told me, you need to do this movie because you're an actual representation of it. I'd done movies and everything. And he said to me, come to this event called A Bug-Free Mind, speak to this guy. No, he didn't ask me. He said, the guy owns Bug-Free Mind, call him. So I called him, and I said, would you be a part of the movie? He said, I'm going to Vegas tomorrow. I can't talk to you about it. If you want to talk to me about this, be at the Palms Hotel on the 7th of May at 7 o'clock, and I'll speak to you then. So I was in another situation. This is 2015 at this point. I was hustling through, and I was in the middle of it all. And I ended up going, you know, and I went to that bar at 7 p.m. and I said, hey, Pete, how's things? I'm Matthew. I was talking to you on Zoom. And he went, I can't believe you came here. He said, you're crazy. And during that week, he brought guest speakers every year, right? And that year was Michael Beckwith, but I didn't have my camera crew with me at the time. And he asked me, would I get up and stand up and talk? And I got up and I said, I'm making a movie called The Evolution of Success, and I want to speak to everybody in this room at some point about it. I got an influx of people, end up getting Jack Canfield from that, got like Sonia Ricotti, got all these people. If I had not have, you know, went with Steve to Vegas on that trip, if I had not have told Steve this is what I wanted to do with the movie, if I hadn't called Pete on that Zoom call, if I hadn't turned up to Pam's place, if I had, you know, if all of these chain of events if I hadn't have done even just one of those, you know, I wouldn't be talking to you because I met Natalie through The Evolution of Success.
Right. Incredible.
So, it's about just trusting and doing it, you know, at that time. And that's something even like as you do start to become more successful and you do start to, you know, have more money in your bank and all those things, you have to remind yourself of how you got there, and you need to still keep that energy.
Sure.
And, you know, do those things, because sometimes I got a bit lackadaisical, as they say in Ireland, whenever it came to doing those and following that gut feeling and making that phone call and turning up and saying yes.
Yeah.
So I ended up at this bug-free mind then for 5 years. And the first year I went, I was drinking. I was crazy. Now, I loved drinking, and I was like on the tables, didn't drink in Vegas, partying. The next year I went back, I was sober. So all the people that I was having fun with, they were like, "You don't drink now? What's going on?" And over the years, I found
it must
myself
have been difficult. What, a year going back to Vegas where you were like partying before, right?
It was, the whole thing was like the first year of like, I had to relearn who I was. I didn't know even, I hadn't even felt from the heel of my foot to the end of my toe on the ground for 15 years, and I didn't feel it for about a year until I stopped. One day I felt really weird and I was like, God, that's my whole foot. It's like I felt my stuff planted on the ground.
You really ultimately saved your life.
Oh yeah, big time. I do think that I would have. From the outside, it was kind of like looking half put together, but on the inside, it was, really bad kidney infection. Not too much information here, but I'm just telling you because, like, it is something that people need to check on. But I had to pee into a cup, which we have to do whenever we go to a doctor sometimes. The doctor's face was like shocked, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I don't even need to test this. You've got a really bad kidney infection." And she put me on these mad strong antibiotics. And I started I met a dietitian at that point, and because not only did I stop drinking, I then stopped eating meat at the same time, and then I stopped smoking, which I was casually smoking when I was drinking, and I stopped eating jellies because there was pork in them and all these things. So it was a major shock to my body, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's probably why you lost so much weight at one time, but you needed to build yourself back up.
Yeah, and now I'm extremely healthy and conscious about what I put into my body and stuff like that.
Right. So, the medical care in Ireland really helped you with the kidney infection. And then were you healthy by the time you came to Los Angeles?
Yeah, like my liver bloods only got good about 4 years after. It took me a while to get my liver really into shape. And then, your addictions move and change, as you know what I mean? Like we end up in different situations. The scroll hole, as they call it, where you're scrolling on your Instagram feed. And I'm very healthy and very conscious, but I end up drinking like an energy drink for like a year. I got really into the gym and I started taking an energy drink every day, and I didn't realize I had become addicted to them. There's 200 milligrams of caffeine in it, and I was like, again, threw my liver bloods off.
Wow.
That's because I'm sensitive. They're not good. I'm always like on that battle because I want to, like, people joke. I went back to Ireland there recently and I got like an MRI, CT scan. They're like, "You're crazy, Matthew, stop doing all this." But
you want to see. You want to see and check yourself out.
Yeah, I want to check it out. So the medical in Ireland, I didn't have insurance. Because in north of Ireland, it's actually still a part of the UK, essentially, so you get free medical. But in the south, I just paid €60 per time I wanted to go see a doctor, and then scans were maybe 350,
Wow.
So whenever I looked at it, like adding up, say I spent $3,000 at that time period, it was still less than what I would have paid after like 2 years insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I always just paid as I went. When you pay as you go in Ireland and you're paying that money, you sort of just walk in. So I could go into the doctor at any time. So there was never really a queue. You don't really have to wait for an appointment for like a week, because there's a free section, which there's waiting lists sometimes for 4 years, for things because people can't pay for it. I was fortunate at that time that I could. So I really took advantage of that. And the money that I would have been spending on food, I completely invested in myself. Doctors, tests.
So are you still
food.
meat free?
No, I'm back eating meat.
Okay.
I met like a mutual friend of ours now, Art. I got pneumonia in 2021, and I ended up in hospital and in Cedars, just down the street from me. And I came out, and I didn't even realize how serious pneumonia was. I didn't know that was like until I started researching that, and then I was like, thank you, I'm alive again. I got another go because again I had double pneumonia and was really unwell. And then whenever I came out, it could. Like I didn't realize my oxygen level was at 87, and I didn't even realize. I only just happened to go to the doctor. It just said, "Do you want to know what? I'll just go to the hospital and see." They got admitted straight away. I was in for 6 days. So that was all good. After it, I was at my apartment just resting up. I was living in an apartment at the time, and I was in and out of the swimming pool and just like enjoying life. And my next door neighbor said to me, "Hey Matthew," he was doing a barbecue. He said, "I've made you a burger." Cooked you a burger, and I was like, he didn't know I wasn't eating meat, and I was like, "Do you know what? I'm actually going to eat that." I had like 3 burgers and a hot dog. And that was me back onto it then. So
I actually didn't eat meat for 10 years, maybe
Yeah.
12 years, and then recently started eating. But, I eat it very in bits and pieces,
And consciously, like I'm very particular about the meat that I eat, because there is a difference in like the quality and the taste whenever you get organic and all those things. A lot of people think it's the word organic. Like it's good. So I'm conscious about what I do eat and what I put into my body. But I did, that's how I end up back onto it.
So I would imagine I'm going to ask, you have an exercise routine?
Yeah.
Because you look like a very healthy guy. So what is your exercise routine? And does that also help you with your sobriety?
It does. It does because, it's, I'm an addict. It's going to come out somewhere. I'd rather it come out in something that's healthy. I can't contain everything. You know what I mean? I have to have it like, sometimes I watch trash TV, but I like to have it in with fitness. I love to swim. I like to swim because I have no phone. You knock out the sense of sound. You can really focus and get into your thoughts and really feel. You can turn it into meditation very easily and just get in and swim. I do weights like probably 5 to 6 days out of the week. And
what is it?
Weights.
Oh, weights. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
I thought you said wits. I'm like, what's wits?
I did. That's my accent. I did. Whenever someone says to me, "Matthew, I thought you said this," I had to say, "Yeah, I did," because that's exactly how it sounded. Because
sorry. So you do weights?
I do weights. And I hike Runyon Canyon, maybe 3 times a week, and that's it. So I keep active. I keep focused. I moved from my apartment after that time into a place in Highland Park. Me and my business partner working on a movie, and we got a gorgeous big house up in the hills. But there was like 3 flights of steps up to it, And after having pneumonia, I couldn't walk up them.
Right.
And we had just moved in like a week later, so I was like, "Oh no, what's going to happen here?"
And there was no elevator?
It was in the hills. It was like a Hollywood Hills house. It was like it had like a gorgeous big view and everything. So it was like built probably in the 60s or something. So it was just an independent detached home. So I had to walk up the hill every day. That really taught me a lesson of like, okay, you're unhealthy. And that triggered me to go to the gym. That's whenever I started getting into fitness, 2021, end of 2021. And it was really difficult at the start. But I got a workout plan that was very, very easy to do. I only done 8 reps and I only done 3 of each one. At the end of my first workout, I said to my mate who done the thing for me, I said, "I don't feel like I done anything." And he said, "Then you just up your weights a little next time, but don't do anything more today. Go home now." So I was going to the gym and coming away, and it was tricking me into thinking that this is easy. So I lowered the bar so much that I was like, "Yeah, I want to go back." Where before, when I tried to get into fitness, I tried to run on the treadmill for 30 minutes and all these things that my body wasn't able for. So then I never went back.
Sure. You got to start out someplace where your body can tolerate it. Yeah. And that for me, I like to be able to enjoy my fitness. So sometimes we're pushing ourselves into something that's not enjoyable and it's not withstanding because it just is not pleasure for us. And obviously exercise is not necessarily pleasure, but we should be able to have fun with it. Right.
That's exactly what happened to me. For my whole life, I went to the gym and then I left it because I was pushing myself into a situation that I didn't enjoy. I was just like, I hate this. Where now I absolutely love it. Like I love it. I love going.
And
I
you
love
look forward to it.
Yeah. And the difference in my body, in my feeling, my stamina, walking, hiking, like all those things, it's just all so much better. I'm conscious about like drinking more water. I just have 1 cup of coffee a day, like probably at like 6:30, between 6 and 7. I really am grateful for my sleep now. I like the sleep. Yeah. And yeah, it's good. It really is good.
So in the parting ways, what is the biggest takeaway for you to be able to tell someone who is trying to get sober, newly sober, or maybe even 20 years later, they're sober, but there's still something that they feel like is missing?
Everything for me just comes down to the question, like, what is it you want? It's the hardest question for all of us to answer, and we have to put thought into it, and we have to understand that is a question that we all need to answer, and even whenever people say, like, it's your why do you do it? That's another word that resonates. Even if you do go by what do you want right now, what is your why? Are you asking 20 years? The reason why you maybe wanted to stop, or the reason why you wanted something, changes.
Sure.
Like, your why has changed 20 years later. When was the last time you asked yourself that? So I would go back to ask myself that question. And I probably ask myself too much, what is it? And it always starts with me with happiness. I want to be happy. And then I ask myself, am I happy? Because whenever I started to ask myself that question, I did not know what I wanted. And all I know is in turmoil, like these things that happened with losing my houses, like losing my business, having no money. And I was like, what is it you want? Because I was asking myself that back then. I couldn't answer it. And it was like, I started by just plainly, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
And then, does this situation I'm in right now make me happy? Mm-hmm. No. Okay, now we need to change that. Sure. And like, starting that small, that is what I would suggest. Mm-hmm. Like, you really want to start that small. You want to start and just be like, look, does this situation make you happy?
That's great.
And having the belief and the understanding that you can be happy, you deserve to be happy, and you also will, you can change it.
Sure.
You can change it.
Back to the secret, you are the creator of your life, right?
Absolutely. I watched a podcast the other day with, is it Ariana Huffington? Is that what you call her? The lady who owns the Huffington Post.
Yes.
I think she opened the Huffington Post. I was listening to a podcast. It actually rolled in from another one on the TV, and I just let it play out, and I was watching it. And I think she started the Huffington Post in her mid-50s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never too late.
Think about that. I think she started.
I just turned 69. So
wow,
I just started this podcast. I think that there's something more for me to continue to create, but I am really going to live my life and create. And that's why I shut down my Facebook, because that wasn't helping with that creation. It was really stagnation worse than that. But not even but. And we are our creators in our own right. If we can get out of the way that potentially we were in our life and in our early part of our life, and leave the stories behind us and create whatever we want to create.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. So recently as well, a year ago, but probably just over a year and a month ago, I started doing stand-up comedy. And because I just thought, I feel like I needed pushed outside my comfort zone again. I think I'm getting a bit too comfortable here. Mm-hmm. I've done several shows. I've got a show in 2 weeks, in like 10 days. And again, I absolutely love it.
That's great.
It's something that you can, did I ever think that I would be doing stand-up, especially sober? I went to Japan last year and I was doing karaoke like 5 of the nights that we were there sober.
That's great.
So these are all things
possible.
that I told myself that that wasn't possible of doing whenever I was, I needed alcohol. That thing, circling back to what you said, people think they need it. I thought I needed it for everything. I thought I needed it for dating. You think you need it for everything, but you don't. It's actually the opposite.
Sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you all the best. And I will continue. I'm going to actually find the evolution of success and watch it myself, and have a really nice evening with Natalie tonight and all of your other friends. Sober.
Yeah, sober. Thanks, Pam. I really appreciate it. And I'll send you links to that and another movie, The Overnight Entrepreneur, the follow-up. I'll send that over to you as well. Awesome. I think you'll enjoy it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Pam.
you for sharing your life. Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425, and check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.